Hello and welcome to another game of Beyond All Reason. Today we are on Supreme Isthmus and we're going to be on the back line watching Justifive Eco. Now the build that Justifive is going to go is he's actually going to go the Lazarus build. Now this was made popular a little while ago now by, I believe it was Aussie Drongo. And in case you don't know, so essentially instead of building a load of wind turbines to rely on your energy production, he's actually going to go for 8 Lazarus. Now the wind on Supreme Isthmus is fantastic, but at times it can stall, which can put a massive spanner in the works as far as your build order is concerned. So the more consistent form in the Lazarus is something that I would recommend. Now to start off with the actual build, he's going to go 2 mexes straight into a wind turbine. And that means that wind turbine is going to be banking up a little bit of energy as the commander is walking over to the 3rd mex. Now the reason we need this is because it allows him to only build 2 wind turbines, even if the wind stalls, in order to get the bot lab out. Now if the wind stalls right the way down to say 1 or 2, then I would recommend building a solar panel. You can always reclaim it later for the metal, but it is quite rare that that happens. Now the bot lab itself is going to consume 64 energy a second while the commander's building it. So he's going to wait until he has roughly 64 energy income. It's okay if it's a little bit less, as you'll see, as long as you've got a little bit of energy banked up, which that wind turbine does do. Now as he's building the bot lab, he's actually going to queue 8 Lazarus and 2 construction bots. But he's going to queue it using the Alt key. So in case you don't know, if you hold Alt and queue the units, they will come out as you have pressed them. So you saw just there, he held Alt, he pressed 3 Lazarus to make 3 Lazarus first, then a construction bot, 3 more Lazarus, another construction bot, and then 2 final Lazarus. And that means that the 3 Lazarus are going to be produced, 1 bot's going to be produced, then it's going to go back in that order. Now then, once he's finished this, as you can see, the energy, he doesn't have enough energy to produce the Lazarus straight away with the commander. So he's going to go into 4 wind turbines. Now this ensures that he doesn't stall energy because the wind turbines require a lot less energy than the Lazarus. If he was to produce this with his commander, he would completely stall. Now the Lazarus, there is plenty of vegetation in the area for it to consume. So he's going to send this Lazarus up here. As soon as that Lazarus starts to eat this vegetation, it's going to provide enough energy to continue building the rest of them with the commander. Now he is going to split these Lazarus up. So 1 Lazarus is going to come down here, 1 Lazarus is going to come up here, and then the rest are going to be all around the map. Now the reason being is because if you put them all in the same place, as they're walking, as they finish this patch and say they're walking over to another patch, it is going to stall in energy. Whereas if you split them up, it's going to be a lot more consistent and steady. Now then, the first construction bot is immediately going to walk over here and build a mex. Then he's going to queue the T2 lab just around here. That is very specific. So by the time the construction bot has built this and is back and starts the T2 lab, he will be ready to power that out. Now as you can see, he does have plenty of energy, and anytime you do hit the red on your energy bar, I would recommend taking your commander and building some energy converters. You'll see in a second, once he's powered this construction bar out, he's actually going to turn around and he's going to build 4 of them. This construction bot is immediately going to build 2 construction turrets, and that's all you're going to need for now. That's plenty of build power. And the final Lazarus that comes out of this bot lab is going to turn around and immediately eat the bot lab. Now you have seen him hand off 2 windmills here to his air player, and that is in exchange for a transport. Now the reason 2 windmills is going to be enough is because if you look, air units are very, very energy dense. They really don't require that much metal. So these 2 wind turbines over the course of the game are going to provide a very nice boost for the air player. There's those energy converters I was talking about. As you can see, he's still maxing out his energy slider, and overflowing it to his team. The 2 construction turrets are finished. As you can see, with all that construction power, he's got plenty of energy still. So I would like to see, yep, there we go, the 2 construction turrets helping his commander build the energy. Now he's immediately going to use this transport, and he's going to bring his commander out here and detonate his commander. He's then going to use the Lazarus to eat the commander, which gives him enough metal to finish the advanced bot lab. One thing I will say is this transport is going to come in massively handy later when he is handing out the T2 to his team. As you can see there, the commander is worth 1,250 metal, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, one thing I will say is when you're eating this with your Lazarus, obviously if you've stalled a little bit in the build, or say the enemy have tried to come in with a bombing run or ticks or anything, just make sure that you don't go over your metal capacity. Another thing to think about is if you was to leave this commander wreckage on, say, 30 metal, as you can see in the bottom left, he's going to eat it all. But if you was to leave this commander with a little bit of metal left in it and not completely eat it up, then later on in the game you can resurrect it. Now he's immediately going to start handing off T2 constructors to the rest of his team, and he's actually going to use the air transport to transport it to them. Now this is big for a number of reasons, one of which being that this T2 construction bot is incredibly slow, so it's going to take a long time for it to walk all the way across the map. Not only that, but because he's the one that's doing it, it frees the pink gentleman here up to continue his build order without being interrupted. This is especially helpful for the people on the front line that are busy microing their units, so all their attention is going to be on the front line and they don't have to split it between upgrading their mexes and grabbing the T2 from way back here. Now the second one that came out, it did in fact start each of these metal production up. So the T2 metal extractors, it started them all up. He's going to use the construction turrets to power out the main one at the front, and he's keeping the other 2 alive with the construction bot, and that just allows him to pass it off much quicker. Now the reason being, in case you don't know, I'm just going to slow it down a bit here, but if you see the progress bar on this metal extractor, if there's nothing building that metal extractor, after a little while it'll start declining. Once it gets to 0, the building will just cease to exist. Another thing I do want to mention while you're doing this is once you're actually building these metal extractors, make sure you're not building anything from the advanced bot lab. Otherwise you will stall out on metal, you will stall out on energy, and it will slow your build down completely. You need to focus on one thing at a time in this game. Right, I'm going to speed it back up. There we go. And as you can see from these as well, if I take a look at a T1 metal extractor, it's producing 2.3 energy a second. However, the upgraded metal extractor is producing 9.2. That's a 4 times increase. This is massive for your metal production and needs to be a priority. So as you can see, once he's got them up, he's now going to start producing T2 bots, construction bots, to hand off to the rest of his team. Even if your team has not paid for them, I would argue you still want to give them T2 with the air transport, because it's just so much more efficient than them going T2 themselves. For example, the people on the front line, if they've got access to these metal extractors here, I believe these metal extractors go up to something like 17 metal a second, which is absolutely massive. So if you think one team's got upgraded metal, another team has standard metal, the team with standard metal are going to be out of luck. Now he is going to walk this construction bot over, but that's simply because his transport is currently being used. And he's also going to produce 6 butlers. Now the reason being is because they're going to assist this construction bot over here to make this advanced metal extractor all the way out here, because he does not have access to it with this construction turrets. One thing I will say is you can transport construction turrets with transports. There's something to keep in mind. Now another thing is the construction bots, once they were finished with the advanced metal extractors, they have built an additional 15 wind turbines. And that's just going to help with his energy income a little bit more as he's producing with the butlers. Once that's done, the butlers are going to come back. He's going to produce one final construction bot for himself, and the butlers are going to start eating this bot lab. Once this construction bot's finished producing the wind turbines, it's going to build 2 more construction turrets. And he's going to go into his first fusion with the metal from this bot lab. Please make sure that you put down a metal storage before you finish eating this bot lab, because you are going to get all of the metal all at once. So in case you don't know, when you're eating a corpse such as the commander, your Lazarus are bringing in energy each second. But if you're eating a structure or unit that is already complete, such as this advanced bot lab, you're going to get no metal until the very end, where you're going to get all of it, and that's 2,900 for this. So you cannot hold enough metal. You can't hold the full 2,900 with just base. So you do need to build the metal storage, otherwise you're going to have it overflow to the rest of your team when you're going to need it for this fusion reactor. Now, as you can see here, he did start overflowing on energy a little bit, so he's going to produce a few energy converters. He's actually not got... Okay, there we go. So the construction turrets are assisting this bot in building the energy converters. Now, it does depend on how much energy you have. As I said, if your energy is staying around the red line, I would advise building energy converters to transfer it into metal. But as you can see, he's going to have plenty of metal to get this up. This is going to be the pivot point. So from here, you can do almost anything you want. This is a flexible build. It's not rigid. So if the enemy comes in with a bombing run or something, you can quickly pop down defenses. The enemy comes in with ticks, with units, or you have anything that you need to adjust. You have the construction power, you have the metal, you have the energy to do just about anything you need to defend yourself. Now from here, he's going to go into a second fusion reactor, and he's going to use those butlers to start producing energy converters. In case a lot of you don't know, they are very good for assisting your construction bots, but they themselves can actually build converters, wind turbines, and your jammers and radar bots, which is fantastic. So they are very good for the economy. A lot of the times you'll see people building absolute massive farms of wind turbines, but I believe it is much better to build your fusion reactors and aphises in one area so you can defend them a lot easier. Now, as I said, from that first fusion reactor, you can go into a number of different builds. If you see that your Cs are losing, you can immediately put down a T2 lab. You've got plenty of metal, you've got plenty of energy income, and you can start producing the aquatic units. Or you can build a APHIS, you can build another fusion reactor like Justify is doing now. You can do just about anything you need to. You can even nuke rush off of this. As you can see here, he's brought the Lazarus back, and he's going to eat the Lazarus up now because he's got plenty of energy. He really doesn't need the energy income from the Lazarus. One thing I would like to see is the Lazarus come down here and maybe try and get some reclaim from the front line. Alternatively, you could... Oh, he's... No, okay. Never mind. He's completely sucked the map dry. So that is probably the best use for the Lazarus to go into the front line. That's what I would recommend. He's produced a few more construction turrets. Notice how he's only got 6 construction turrets still. A lot of the times people will fall into the trap where they'll have like 10, 12 construction turrets up by now. As you can see there, immediately going into a nettle as he sees the scout come past. Now if you do see someone scouting your base, 9 times out of 10 is because they've gone for a nuke rush and they are looking for your anti-nuke. Just bear this in mind. As you can see, he immediately puts down the anti-nuke. A lot of the times, if somebody is going for the nuke rush, they are going to try and get a spy bot into your backline as well to try and disable any anti-nuke systems. And that's where the trace is going to come in. It's going to allow him to detect it. Now, another thing I will make note of is I do like to build a radar when I'm behind here, when I'm at the back. A lot of the times, the air players, they like to try and sneak a constructor into the back here and produce a bot lab to run down into the back of your base. Now this can be devastating. You do need to be very careful of this. It's not so bad early game because you do have Lazarus up here, which are providing vision for you. but you do need to be very careful of that. Now, as you can see, he's going to go into 5 fusion reactors. After your first fusion reactor, it is possible to go into an Aphis, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably say after maybe 2, maybe 3 fusion reactors, you should be okay to go into an Aphis. Otherwise, you will stall on metal. Now, another thing to make note is if you think you're maybe behind or the enemy is nuke rushing, you can build from a T2 lab the anti-nuke bot, and you can set it to patrol here. It is cheaper than the static. It does not have quite as much range as the static, but it can be harder to scout because your opponent does not actually know where that bot is because it can move. You'll notice a lot of the times when people are going for nukes, they will actually aim it directly on the side, right around here, so that he gets as much as possible. A lot of the times when you build it here, you're still vulnerable to a nuke landing around here, which can do a lot of damage. So with the bot, they don't quite know where the edge is, which can sometimes catch them off guard. Now then, as I mentioned before, you can pivot into so many different areas from here, depending on how your team is doing. So as you can see here, the pink player here has in fact won the ocean, and there aren't too many defenses down here actually. So I'd assume it was a relatively recent win. He's still got the shipyard up. Yep. There's not too many defenses down here. As you can see, the blue player has sort of won. He has. Yeah, there's the commander go down. He's won the ocean. But he doesn't have a hell of a lot up. So he's only just won the ocean. He's just now going into the amphibious units. And the red player here is going to scale his build power right the way up because he's got plenty of metal. He's got plenty of fusion reactors. In fact, I'd like to see a metal storage go down because he did overflow a bit there. There's his teammate communicating to him that he's lost C. And he's going to go straight into the experimental gantry and only build 10 marauders. Now, I think he's going to build a few more than that, but we're going to watch what he does with them. I find this incredibly interesting, and he's actually, it's a bit of a spoiler alert, he's going to win the game with just a couple of marauders. Now, as you can see, he definitely could have gone into it earlier, off of 2, 3 fusion. It wouldn't have been a problem. But this is just sort of scaling his economy up. They're not the most efficient fusion reactors. They are not the most efficient by any means. I believe Aphises are maybe 2.5 times more efficient than fusion reactors. So if you're going to build a large number of them, I would prefer you to go for an Aphis. But I'm just going to speed it up slightly here. So he's producing these marauders out. He's going to take 3 of them in one group. And he's actually going to push them up here onto this island and completely eliminate these metal extractors. This takes quite a lot of metal away from the blue player here. Not only that, but it takes quite a lot of his attention away as well. Now another group of 5 marauders are going to come down this side, and they are going to immediately come straight through here. And the one thing you don't really see is he's going to produce another lot of 5 marauders, and he's actually going to pass them off to his C player here and run them straight through the middle. Now the reason I like this so much is because it really splits up the enemy team, and it really does not require you to micro very much. Now as you can see here, he's immediately going to eat the experimental gantry and puts it straight into an Aphis. Again, you need metal storages. And he's built a hardened one there. You can see, there we go, straight up, all of that metal gets consumed and it gets added to your bank all at once. Now he's going to scale his build power while these marauders are running absolute rampant. So these are going to completely clear this out. There's no stopping that. We've got these marauders which are running straight through the front line, and these marauders which are going to run through here. Now the reason I like this so much is because it forces this player to react. So normally you're rushing against this player who is also going to be eco-rushing and might go for marauders himself. But because you've got marauders pushing through here, it is going to force him to react. As plenty of mines here, so those salamanders aren't going to do anything. These marauders have finally cleared this out, and these marauders have run straight through the middle. This is preoccupying the entire enemy team. As you can see, when these marauders came up, this player, and this player was actually focused on these marauders because they're such a large threat that these marauders were able to just walk straight through. Now, as I said, this is going to be GG. So the yellow player here has gone into the sea and they've assisted and taken full control of that. The butlers have built a few wind turbines, which I'm not opposed to. Once you've got enough energy storage, the wind turbines they're actually very efficient on this map. You can see the average wind is 7.4, which is still, no, sorry, the average wind is 14.2, my mistake, which is still a respectable amount of income. Anyway, that's going to be GG. As you can see, he's got 2 aphises. He's almost got his third up at 21 minutes, which is perfectly fine. As I mentioned, he went into marauders. He's gone into aircraft as well. He noticed that the enemy were maybe amassing too many air, and he was going to help out his air player and just defend his team. The enemy is going to pass a vote to concede there, and that is going to be GG. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.